Hello everyone, and welcome back to our next lesson here in Fusion 360. I apologize for a little bit of head congestion while I'm making this video, so sorry if I sound kind of funny, and I will try to pause the recording for the most of the coughing that might come up in this video, but I'm sure I'm not going to catch it all. Quick pause for coffee. Okay, back in. Alright, so in this video, in today's lesson, what I kind of want to talk to you guys about is thinking about a strategy for making parts, right? So we've been learning to do 3D models, and so far I've been kind of telling you step by step, hey, do this, do that, make this, make that. And we have enough tools at our disposal now. I think maybe we can start to make some different things and start to think about doing it with less directions. Okay, so what I'm going to show you first here is a part. This is called Tutor 1. This is out of an old SolidWorks textbook, actually. And if we were going to make this, all right, let's consider for a second what our strategy for this guy might be. All right, you might make this box right here. Right, that is kind of the base of the whole thing. Maybe extrude that box up, so you'd sketch the outline of the box, extrude it up, and then maybe pick this surface right here to draw a circle, extrude that up, and then pick this surface to draw another circle and extrude that down through it so it becomes a hole. Right? And then you could go back and add your fillets to all the corners and the ends, and you could end up with this part. Right? So that's a perfectly valid strategy. In fact, that's probably how I would make this part. And I'm going to say it's probably how I did make this part, but I didn't make it in Fusion, so I don't have any design history for it. We'll talk about design history here in a minute. Okay, so let's look at another part. And this part here was made by a student, and it's a part for practice. I think, I don't know if this has an actual use. It's a pretty interesting looking thing. And we could guess that maybe we made, again, we drew a square, a rectangle, we extruded it into 3D. We could have drawn it on this side and extruded that way. We might have drawn this way and extruded it that way. It doesn't really make much difference as long as we kind of know in our own mind's eye what we're doing, right? And then over here on this face, we added a circle and extruded it out into a cylinder. And then on the end face, we added a hexagon and extruded that all the way through as a cut. So we have this hexagonal hole, right? And then up here we have 4 circles that were extruded into cylinders, and then a bunch of fillets. Right? There's fillets around the base of these guys. And our holes out here all have fillets. Oh, and then I forgot about this rectangular hole that goes through. So we drew a rectangle on the side here, cut a rectangle through it. Right? That's possible. That could have been how that happened. It's not necessarily, any guarantee that that's how that happened. You could get the same result by drawing this profile here with the hexagon in the middle and then only extruding this shaded area here, not selecting the hexagon for your extrude. That might give you the same result. All right. So with that, let me look at my next part. All right, here's another 2 cylinders. Right, probably I'm going to guess this started out looking at this, drew the outer circle, extruded into 3 dimensions. Right, then selected this face as the drawing plane, sketched another circle, extruded that into 3 dimensions. Selected this face as the drawing plane, sketched this circle, which was then extruded into that hole that goes all the way through. Okay, fairly straightforward. And then we get into a part that looks kind of like this one. So how was this made? All right, this is a great practice part, and it's maybe it lacks context a little bit, I suppose, but it's still a really good part because there's a lot of different ways we could extrude it. And so I've actually split this into different bodies so I can turn them off and on. So we'll look at it from this end here, right? Maybe the person drew this L shape and then extruded that L shape into 3D. And then they came back and added this rib. Right? I guess I could say she, since I know who made this. Right? Or maybe she did this. She might have drawn this as the base feature right here, and then sketched the back right here on top surface and extruded that up, and then added the rib. Right? That's possible. Or maybe what she did was sketch this entire thing as one big rectangular cylinder from here out to here, and then on that face draw a cut and cut in this part here and cut that part there. And maybe she cut them from this end. Maybe she drew it out here on the end and then cut them in. That could have happened. Maybe she started with this feature, right? She might have drawn this rectangular profile and then extruded it in that direction. Maybe, or sorry, I said rectangular profile, didn't I? That's a triangle. Just checking to see if you're paying attention. But maybe she started with this rectangular profile and then extruded it in this direction and tapered it to a point. Can you do that? Is that possible? If it is, do you know how to do it? Maybe it's a valid strategy. Alright. Maybe she started with that and then decided to add the rib piece on there. Maybe this was a whole rectangle and then she cut this piece of it off before putting the bottom on. Right? We don't know. At the end, it doesn't really matter if it comes out to be the right size. It's the thing that that you're going for, and it does the job that it's supposed to do. It is the part that it's supposed to be. And how you got it there doesn't make a whole lot of difference. When you get more advanced in your design career, we'll talk more about your design intent, and the intent of what the thing is going to be used for will sometimes influence some of these choices in the early modeling phase. But right now, for you guys just starting out, I wouldn't worry about it. Right? Just know that there are different options. All right, so here's an actual part that we have made some in the shop. This is a little fidget spinner CNC project. Right? This was almost certainly this profile all sketched out using some different sketch tools. I'm going to guess a rectangle, some arcs, and this could have been a couple of different arcs in here. Right? You got a circle all sketched, and then the body of it selected and extruded down in this direction. And so one sketch, one extrude could make that part. You could also do one sketch and extrude for the body solid, a second sketch for the circle, cut through, and a second sketch for this, and then a third sketch and a fourth sketch for this one over here, if you wanted to do that. Again, like when I first started out doing 3D models, that's probably what I would have done. Right? I would have done one sketch for each individual feature, and then I would have ended up with this in the end just the same as if I did the entire thing off one sketch and one extrude, which would be possible. So that brings me to my collet rack, which I know you can't see. And so I was going to show you guys, this was actually made in Fusion, so I do have design history on it. I made this myself. It was made for 3D printing and just meant to hold some collets in the shop. So what I decided to do first, turn my sketch on, was sketch on my home view this large rectangular profile. Right? I often like to sketch in the top view. A lot of times I start out thinking about looking down on top of the thing I'm making because that's the way my brain likes to see it. Right? It doesn't mean it has to be that way. But from there I extruded it up and I had this big block. as I knew it was going to be generally rectangularly shaped. And then I thought, okay, I need a hole, so I sketched where my hole was going to be for my collet. This is before I learned to use the Fusion Hole tool, so I'm still doing circle sketches and extrude cuts to make my holes. And then I knew, okay, I need more than one of those holes, so I patterned my hole. And I patterned my hole all across the top here, so I had however many collets I was going to hold with it. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. I had to pause for phlegm. The more I talk, the harder it gets to talk. I'll probably lose my voice before the week's over. Let's see if we can get through this video. Alright, so there's my holes, and right now, as it stands, this thing would hold my collets. Right, those holes are the size I needed for my collets. Just drop them in there. Bam. That could be my collet rack right there. Well, I knew I was going to 3D print it, and I didn't want to waste all this plastic printing in space that I didn't need. So I thought, okay, well, let me go ahead and sketch. What did I sketch next? Oh yeah, I sketched inside. That's interesting. I wonder why I did that. So I did an offset sketch here on the bottom. Oh, I know why I did that. Okay. Because if I would have used a shell tool, these would have been all tubes. Alright, so instead I just sketched this smaller rectangle inside, which was then extruded as a cut back up the way we came. And that took all that material out of the middle. That's good. Right? But again, I'm going to 3D print this, and there's a lot of material here in the sides. I don't really need that, so I decided to create another sketch on this face back here, and I sketched it as a rectangle like so, and I extruded that through, and I cut it open. And I thought, okay, well, let me do another sketch. I'll sketch that over here on this end, and extrude that all the way through, and cut that open. And at this point, now I'm like, oh, yeah, that's not wasting too much material. My collets can sit here, and I've got a little thing that'll sit on the table, and that should work okay. And what is this guy? Oh, I have an offset face here. That might be... Oh, okay, so it looks like I took that out. So I had just some simple legs like that because I didn't want to connect that across the bottom. And then I start to go add my fillets to things. And I think I actually 3D printed it like this, only to realize, which should have been obvious, when I put some heavy collets in the middle, these thin little plastic legs, this whole thing kind of bowed. So I came back and I sketched a series of triangles in here, because I do love triangles. And then I extruded my triangles into support. And my reenactment is giving me some kind of warning. Right, then I patterned my support over to the other side. So I just mimicked those guys, copied them over here. Right? I think we did do in one of our earlier lessons doing, we did circular pattern, rectangular pattern works very much the same. You give it a direction, you give it spacing. Right, and so then I had these sort of triangular shaped supports in my legs. Not sure why I decided to get rid of that. I think actually, oh, that's why it was suppressed. Let me go back and suppress that feature. If I remember right, the final product actually looked like that. So I had triangles that were connected through the base. Turn all those sketches off. All right, and so I actually sketched these out. You could sketch the triangle and just cut the holes through. Right, that could have worked. I could have just done that to begin with. Maybe I should have just drawn triangles here instead of a big rectangle to cut through. Way back here in the timeline, I could have just drawn this triangle and extruded that straight through, right? In this shape up here, here, here. That might have been easier. I don't know why. I didn't think of it at the time. And in the end, this is what I ended up with. And it worked for what I needed it to work for. So I think it's all right. So that is pretty much what I have for you. That's almost 15 minutes on just thinking about the process. And so in this lesson, you guys are going to be modeling something where you have to go from scratch, take a real physical thing or a drawing and decide for yourself where to start and see if you can make a 3D representation of the thing. All right. But before we get into that, check out my next video. I'm going to talk a little bit in that video about doing text and importing photos, just because they're kind of fun, and I'll show you guys how to do them, and we're going to have a project later where you'll need that information. All right, so I'll see you in that video.